We're joined today by two presenters and their guest who will join about halfway through the presentation. Our presenters today are Georgia Marchant, Global Communications Director, leading the global communications effort across both Fluke Corporation and Fluke Reliability, including public relations, analyst relations, social media, executive communications, and external events. We're also joined by our presenter, Olivia Klein, Global Communications Manager, Fluke and Fluke Reliability. Olivia is a seasoned communications professional with expertise in strategic, external, and internal communications. She has a strong focus on the transformative power of communication to empower change, foster connections, and drive impactful outcomes. I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a couple guest speakers join about 30 minutes into the presentation. That'll be Candace Potter. Candace is a Fluke and eMate Enterprise Account Executive. Also, Gavin Robinson. Gavin is a Fluke eMate Sales Manager. All right, everyone, you're here for Shortage to Strength. Will AI be the solution manufacturing skills shortage? George and Olivia, take it away.
Hi guys, welcome to today's webinar. So lots to cover in today's webinar on AI and the skills shortage. I think this is, not a new topic. It's something that's been covered quite a lot in the press, but we think we've got a little bit of a new take on it. So hopefully there'll be some insights that you can take back to your work and to your organization. Next slide, please. So just covering what we'll do in today's agenda. So the first one is the skills gap today. So we'll look at some of the current challenges that the industry is facing, where the skills gap kind of fits within those challenges. We'll then move on to AI as a strategic solution. And we'll have a look at what our respondents from our survey have said will be their main focuses on using AI to address the skills shortage. We'll then go into unlocking the path of productivity and resilience with AI, building the workforce of tomorrow, and some key takeaways so that you can turn the insights into action, which is what AI does nowadays too. Next slide, please, Robin. So as I was saying, it's, the skills shortage is not a new thing. It's something that has been progressing over quite a few years now. And some of the stats on this page are quite shocking. I'm just going to touch on a couple. So there's a projected 1.9 million unfilled manufacturing jobs by 2033, which is huge. And that's in the US alone. And then when we shift over to UK manufacturing, 20% of the workforce is likely to retire by 2026. So some really huge gaps in the industry, and some of the reasons for those gaps are kind of listed below. So we're seeing an aging workforce. So a lot of our workforce are retiring, taking all of that knowledge with them, and there's definitely a gap in terms of new entrants to market and new employees coming into the manufacturing industry. But we're coupling that with some industry challenges. So there's lots of kind of macro issues that have been ongoing for a while now, and I'll just touch on a few of those. So there's a technology and kind of reskilling challenge. We've seen AI kind of grow at exponential rates over the last couple of years, and organizations are struggling to keep up. They're struggling to keep up in terms of upskilling their employees. They're struggling to kind of in terms of implementing as quick and keeping up with the pace of change. And that is leading to some gaps in skills and knowledge around new technology in particular. Another thing that we're seeing is supply chain issues. So likewise, this is not new. This is something that has kind of been born out of COVID-19, and it's been ongoing with geopolitical challenges, especially if we look at kind of demand to supply. So since COVID-19, everybody expects everything at the drop of a hat and a click of a finger, and demand is struggling to keep up with supply, and that is due to a lot of those supply challenges, but also due to manufacturing organizations operating on really lean teams, and therefore having kind of productivity limited. And then I think this kind of couples up with some things that we've spoke about before. So the skilled labour dependency. So there's definitely a gap in terms of how we bridge the knowledge gap from those that are retiring and those that are new to market. And we'll touch on today a couple of areas where we think AI might be able to help bridge that knowledge gap, or how, utilizing technology can do a lot in terms of automating certain processes and certain skills and roles. Next slide, please. So on to our survey. So that's why you are here today. We surveyed 605 respondents. So they were both maintenance managers and manufacturing executives. So we kind of got two ends of the coin. We also covered 4 subset of industries. So automotive, food and beverage, life sciences, and oil and gas. And this was an almost kind of global survey. So UK, US, and Germany were surveyed. So I think what's really interesting is as we go through the presentation today, there'll be some nuances between the regions, quite a lot of synergy, and we'll cover off some areas of focus in terms of regions, looking into automotive and food and beverage, which is where our guest speakers come on board. But I think one of the big things to kind of tick off here, and it comes as no surprise, 90% of respondents said that they are struggling from skills and labour shortage, and it has impacted their organisation. And 31% said that was a significant impact on them or their organisation. So that's either as an employee or as kind of an executive and overseeing the organisation and having that impact. So we're going to go to our first poll and kind of see how you guys have been affected. So the poll is, to what extent was your organisation affected by the skill shortage in 2024?
Nice to see some of the responses coming in.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very.
Awesome. Next slide.
Thanks, Georgia, and thanks everyone for participating in that poll. Obviously, we can see across the board industries are suffering from the skill shortage. But to mitigate these effects, industrial organisations are investing or planning to invest in AI. Our research showed that 39% of maintenance managers will use AI to enable positive transformations and boost efficiency. And even more interesting, 36% of respondents say that their primary motivation for implementing AI is to compensate for the skill shortage. And then when we look at this a bit further, we can see within the research, 21% agree that AI and real-time data analytics will enable them to bridge the skills gap. And this leads me on to a bigger point. Effectively, AI is being embraced as this agent of change. It's not just necessarily a solution to the labour shortage, but it can also drive operational efficiency, power through automation, and also empower the workforce. It does this by democratizing intelligence, so organizations can unlock those actionable insights from data and truly breaking down those silos that we see within manufacturing organizations globally, fostering collaboration and enabling innovation at the same time. But we do know that this also requires strategic implementation to create genuine impact. Ultimately, value is realised when organisations have a clear strategy built around use cases to integrate these technologies within their workforce. And luckily, during our research, we did get some examples of where this had been done successfully. Next slide, please, Robin. So as I mentioned, we wanted to add a little bit of colour to the data and put in some open survey response questions within the research, asking respondents where AI has really positively impacted their organisation. As you can see, these are all on the slide, but I'm just going to add some more narrative behind the scenes as well. The UK in particular has been using AI to empower decision making, improve communications and collaboration between stakeholders. Something that I do on my day-to-day is use Microsoft Copilot. So we're seeing a lot of this happening within organizations across regions. And then secondly, moving on to the US, we're seeing a focus on energy conservation, process optimization within agriculture. Now, Candice, our food and beverage expert, will talk about more of the industry and its applications later on, but some of the respondents were talking to the smart systems that are able to optimize resources and suggest energy saving measures, particularly within the agriculture industry. We know this can be extremely vital and time sensitive. AI is enabling them to automate farming, also by monitoring soil conditions and monitor crop yields at the same time. And then again, Germany, we saw some respondents come in with the use of digital twins and machine vision. Obviously, digital twins can enable organisations and manufacturers to foresee what might happen before the worst case scenario occurs. So this is great, particularly within this sort of product test environment, as I sort of like to refer it to. Machine vision systems as well are being used to automate product sorting and packaging, sort of underlying really these positive transformations that we are seeing through the use of AI. But now I'm going to pass on to one of our experts, Gavin Robinson, who's going to touch on automotive.
Hi everyone. Next slide, please. So I'm here to speak about the automotive industry and the impact that AI is having and could help in terms of the skills shortage. So at the moment we're seeing a major transformation in terms of the automotive industry. So with electric vehicles, IoT, and autonomous vehicles, which are all leading the charge. So we're not seeing, I suppose, an evolving, but a revolution in terms of the way in which cars are being designed, manufactured, and experienced. But yet, even with all of these advances, the industry is still grappling with an acute skilled labor shortage, which is affecting 89% of organizations, and 31 of which have identified as their most critical challenge. So I suppose if we look at the kind of the history of the innovations that have come within the car industry, going back to 1912 with the Ford Model T, which revolutionized production with the assembly line, reducing production time from 12 hours down to 93 minutes. Workers needed to adapt to new methods, but it did create millions of jobs. Fast forward to 1934 with the Chrysler Airflow. So that introduced aerodynamic design and in-car radios. Technicians had to learn electrical systems, a precursor to today's IoT integration. Then with the Toyota Prius, towards the end of the 20th century, the world's first mass-produced hybrid vehicle, which demanded expertise in both internal combustion and electric systems, leading to specialized training programs for mechanics. The Tesla Roadster in 2008 proved that electric vehicles could be fast, sleek, and desirable, sparking a global EV revolution. This required new manufacturing techniques, including battery assembly and lightweight material usage. And then in terms of the present day, what we're seeing in terms of Tesla's, full self-driving, beta, which uses machine learning to analyze real-time road data, which is a testament to how far automotive technology has come over the last 100 years. The modern challenge then that's been experienced with all these innovations is in terms of skilled labor. So electric vehicles in particular demand, specialized knowledge in these three areas. So battery technology. So this is with lithium-ion battery packs, which are the heart of electric vehicles. Manufacturers like CATL and Panasonic require technicians trained in precision assembly and safety protocols. The second element would be high voltage systems. Workers must understand power electronics and high voltage safety measures. And the third part would be lightweight materials. So Tesla's use of aluminium intensive designs and rivet bonding methods require new welding and assembly skills. Next slide, please. So I suppose innovation is born from necessity. So, the skilled labor shortage in the automotive sector is significant, but AI is rapidly emerging as the most effective tool to address this gap. So according to Bloomberg, electric vehicle production is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 22.5% all the way through to 2030. However, skilled labor availability is not keeping pace with that. So to meet this demand, the industry is looking at AI to bridge that gap. And these AI applications include predictive maintenance. So for example, sensors embedded in robotic arms, analyzing vibration and wear patterns to ensure uninterrupted production. The second element would be real-time data analytics. So for example, BMW's integration of IoT with AI analyzes factory data in real time to adjust workflows dynamically. For instance, AI systems can detect slight misalignment in parts during assembly and correct them instantly. And then we have automation. So if you look at Tesla, there are gigafactories which employ AI-driven robotics for tasks like battery cell assembly and painting, achieving precision and reducing the reliance on manual labor. Some of the industry trends that we're seeing, and from various different leaders in the kind of the sector, speak about how AI adoption is essential to overcoming that skilled labor shortage. So 78% of industry leaders believe that, as well as 37% of executives are increasing investments in AI, IoT, and predictive maintenance technologies to drive efficiency. Ford in particular have partnered with companies like Pivotal and Udacity to offer employees AI and data analytic training, preparing them for roles in smart manufacturing. So we're seeing a shift in terms of how companies are trying to upskill and reskill their employees. So I guess to wrap on that, this isn't just a labor shortage, it is an opportunity to innovate and redefine how we work, similar to times in the past when we've seen similar points of innovation in terms of the automotive industry. So by leveraging AI and investing in our workforce, the automotive industry can not only overcome today's challenges in terms of the shortage of skilled labor, but also lead the charge in terms of innovation for decades to come. Thank you. So with that, I can pass back to Olivia and Georgia.
Thanks, Gavin.
Thank you.
Next slide, please, Robin. And speaking of kind of how employees are viewing the abilities of AI and where the potential lies in terms of bridging some of those gaps in skills, we also have some of the open responses in the survey on the screen. And we kind of segmented them into region because it looks like some regions are slightly ahead than others, or they're thinking a little bit differently about how they'll use AI to kind of bridge that skills gap. And some of them are quite interesting. Something that we saw in the UK, which is no surprise, Gavin touched on it a minute ago, is improving production efficiency, quality control, and utilising it in terms of predictive maintenance. So where we see one of the most common use cases for this is in vibration. So having a vibration sensor on an asset, and then that data feeding into an AI diagnostic engine. That diagnostic engine has, years worth of data and years worth of kind of assets within it to be able to see what the trends are, and therefore then predicting months, sometimes 6 months in advance, what might happen. So you can get on top of fixing those faults before they cost you for downtime. So that's one of the kind of crucial ways. Another way that comes up in the UK is kind of virtual reality, augmented reality. So seeing a few use cases of this dotted here and there, but potentially that might continue to grow in the future. Obviously, chatbots as well. I think that's something we're all very familiar with as consumers. Whether you like them or not, sometimes they can kind of speed up the process in terms of FAQs, particularly kind of customer problems, and just being able to problem solve on a really quick basis. In the US, we're actually seeing people talk a lot about the change management aspect of AI. And I think that's something that's an undercurrent that's probably not talked about enough. I think we would all love AI to be kind of a magic wand, or any technology, in fact. But when you're driving digital transformation, it's really important that you bring your employees along the change curve with you. And if you don't do that, there's an opportunity that, you know, it's not going to do the things you want it to do, because people aren't going to utilize it in the way that is the most effective or is ingrained into their roles and how they approach work. The other thing that has kind of come out is utilizing AI in terms of resumes and candidate screenings. Which I think is an interesting kind of take on the skill shortage, because I think obviously there's going to be a big focus on building new entrants to market, but how do you kind of screen those candidates and ensure they have the right skills or kind of the right education to be able to fit within your organization? And people are using AI within the recruitment process to make that a little bit smoother. And then in Germany, we're looking at AI from a customer perspective. So a lot of them are using it to improve the customer experience, to ensure that they have kind of automated customer surveys and feedback, and then that feedback gets translated in and actioned upon. And then looking at how they can build AI into the workforce culture, and kind of having a clear strategy around building that. So lots of interesting ways that people see AI as a you know, a good way to slot in and to help bridge the skills gap, and where some of them are using it already in terms of a use case scenario. Next slide, please. But I think what was the most interesting thing that came out of the survey, and what kind of pricked mine and Liv's ears up, is I think when you think about AI, you think about automating mundane tasks. You think about, you know, being able to automate large kind of tasks and things that happen every single day so that it can free up more time for you. What actually came out of our survey was that 97% of respondents see AI as a viable solution to overcoming high-skilled labour. And so we sat for it a bit, we sat with our SMEs, and we were kind of saying, you know, what does that mean? What do we think they're trying to get at there? And I think that this is where data really comes to the fore. So as I was speaking about earlier, in the predictive maintenance use case, AI can sift through trillions of data points, which no human will be able to do in the same amount of time. So I think that's where the kind of high skill element comes in, where perhaps, you know, when you would have had to kind of bring in vibration analysts on a regular basis, you might now only bring them in for the really critical pieces, because AI's doing that job for you. And kind of, at least to a high percentage, is showing you what's the faults that are coming up, so you can get ahead of them. A couple of other stats: 36 respondents said AI is a solution to the low-skilled labour. I think that's sort of no surprise, and a continuation of what we see across other kind of industries. And then 18% plan to automate low-skilled job and use AI as a tool for empowerment for the employees. So I think the key thing that we keep coming back to here is having that human element and human involvement. AI is not going to be able to do it all. You really need to bring your employees on board, but then also upskill them and develop your employees to be able to feel comfortable using this new technology, and therefore really see the value in the outcomes of your organization. Next slide, please. And this kind of brings us on to one of our case studies. So this isn't specific to AI, but it is specific to how technological advancement is helping in terms of skill shortage. And I'm just going to pick out a few things from this case study. You can find this full case study on our eMate website. But Torque are a self-driving truck manufacturer. They came to us and the majority of their workflow was on kind of Excel sheets and word of mouth, and there was no standardization in their processes. So something that they did by implementing a CMMS system was to fully standardize their routine maintenance. It was the first project like this that they'd rolled out. And one of the reasons that they did that is that they had a number of kind of parent and child assets related to vehicle inspections. These vehicle inspections happen sometimes daily, sometimes monthly, sometimes annually. And so they wanted to standardize the processes around that and the policies. Now, this helps in a couple of different ways. One, it democratizes intelligence, like I think Liv was speaking about earlier. It means everybody starts on the same playing field and everybody has the same tools to work with. It helps from a training perspective. So when we're talking about bringing new employees into the organization, it is standardized processes that makes that onboarding experience a lot smoother. It kind of reduces that tribal knowledge or word of mouth knowledge that perhaps might get passed to certain employees on a certain shift, but then not others, and they'll miss out. So I think key thing here is really improve knowledge transfer and using technology to kind of streamline training, onboarding, and really be a catalyst and a kind of co-pilot for your employees to do their jobs well and kind of simplify their workflows. Next slide, please.
In the same vein, I'm also going to be talking about a case study from Kasai Plastics, one of our customers who is an automotive plastics manufacturer. Now, similar to what Georgia was saying, this case study also doesn't solely focus on AI, but the beauty of advanced technologies is that there are some things there that really do help in terms of the skill shortage, particularly in a Kasai's case. Struggling with their manual and inefficient maintenance tracking, lack of PM completion data, disconnected spare parts, they turned to eMate and our enterprise asset management software to help automate those data and insights, particularly with eMate X5 and Power BI's automated reporting. Now, I'm just going to jump to probably one of the standout quotes from this case study, which you can find as well on the eMate website in full. But Holly Trippick, the maintenance and reliability manager, and I quote, "I basically automated myself out of the job." Something that previously 5 years ago took her 2 days now takes her no time at all. And similarly to what Georgia was saying before, you know, in terms of democratizing intelligence and also freeing up strategic time, this is where automation has such a huge use case because it enables high-skilled workers as well to focus on those higher value projects, which then leads to bolstered competitiveness within the organization and also fosters greater innovation. And we know that automation can enable effective operations with limited resources as well. But the key here that I really want to focus on, as you know, we've talked about throughout, is really that employee empowerment as well. When we're thinking about employees in terms of the skill shortage, we're also looking towards attracting and retaining talent. When you're empowering your employees to focus on those strategic tasks, giving them the opportunity to maybe push themselves out of their comfort zone, they're able to focus on critical thinking, which in terms of every day to day, we want to be challenged, we want to do that. And this can also impact the organization and fuel growth in that way. Next slide, please, Robin. Now I'm going to come back full circle and put AI back in the picture again. Across industries, there is widespread agreement that with the right data foundation, AI will help them address the high skilled labour gap. Now, whilst we see a variety of responses, automotive in terms of adoption are leading, followed closely by food and beverage, and then oil and gas slightly lagging behind. What unites all of these industries is really that need for a solid and strong data foundation. No matter where you are in an organization, whether you're a marketing specialist or a Cat 3, Cat 4 vibration analyst, if you have bad data, you're going to churn out bad results. And this is really where we're seeing AI diagnostic engines coming into play. With AI diagnostic engines, we've touched on this before, but there are trillions of data points within them. And they can provide those fault predictions and enable proactive operations through root cause analysis, etc. But what this means is it just reduces the dependency on skilled labour. But, as we continue to mention, it is mainly the responsibility of the organisation to find ways to empower that collaboration between human and machine, rather than looking to automate low-skilled labour in itself. It is about finding that ways that AI can work within the organisation, empower employees, to really keep the human in the loop, in essence.
Next slide, please, Robin. So we wanted to, pop in another poll here and say, what do you think is the most significant opportunity to leverage AI in your organization to address challenges arising from the skill shortage? So if you could just take a moment to vote, and then we'll show you what our respondents of our survey said.
Interesting to see some of the results coming in.
Awesome. Thanks, Robin. Drive product and efficiency, no surprise there. Standardized maintenance practices, empower and recruit next generation of workers. Nice. Next slide, please. So when we kind of looked to our survey respondents, the highest thing that came out in terms of where they feel the gap is skill set diversity. So over 1/3 of respondents feel that there's just a lack of skill set diversity across employees. And I think this kind of touches on a couple of the other elements that are down here. So a lack of knowledge, but also a lack of training and development. So I think, when we're looking at onboarding new technology, it's not necessarily always the best thing to just hire new people that can help with that technology. You need to kind of bring the organization along that journey with you. The other things that came out were keeping up with the pace of technology. So I think no surprise there. It's been a very steep curve in terms of innovation in the last few years. I think, literally a couple of years ago, we would have spoken about AI and people have been like, what? Is that just something that the kind of labs deal with? And now people are using ChatGPT every single day. And I would be challenged to see anyone in attending this webinar that hasn't experimented in some way with a shape or form of AI. But I think one of the kind of main things in terms of this is keeping up with technology, industry-wide issues that are kind of affecting the area and from a supply chain and demand perspective. But also it's the human-machine collaboration element. And I think this is where we have the shift from Industry 4.0 to Industry 5.0. So Industry 4.0 was centered around kind of new technology, new innovation. And we saw that with kind of machine learning, AI, all of those different elements, digital twins, those kind of innovations. But where Industry 5.0 differs is it places all of the emphasis on the worker. So how are you, yes, it's great to kind of implement new technology, but are you ensuring that that's actually empowering your team and having an impact on their day-to-day work and simplifying their roles or helping them in their roles in some way, shape or form? I think we need to kind of strike a balance between automation and human creativity and ensure that people have, autonomy in their roles, that they can work on things that bring them joy, as well as kind of help them be more efficient and more productive, which helps the bottom line of the organization. Next slide, please. And I think we're passing over to Candice now, who's going to touch on a bit of a focus on the food and beverage industry and building a future-ready workforce there.
Yes. Hi, good morning. Good afternoon. Doesn't look like my camera's showing. I'm trying to do that, but it's not working. Yeah, definitely would like to kind of highlight the food and beverage industry. And right now, we're really seeing that the industry is at a critical crossroads. So struggling with a workforce shortage that's really disrupting operations, increasing costs, and impacting supply chains. And the lack of skilled labor, it's not only straining resources, but really threatens long-term sustainability. So when we look at the current landscape, there's a couple things I'll point out. So first, staffing shortages. So it's really led to increased reliance on outsourcing, inconsistent production schedules, and higher regulatory risks. Also, high employee turnover. So it's really enhancing these challenges as overburdened teams struggle to keep up. So the industry is really moving towards advanced technologies like AI to try to address these gaps, but we know technology alone is insufficient. So really the focus needs to shift to sustainable workforce strategies, integrating innovation, and then of course people first initiatives. So when we look at the impact on the sector, there's 4 things I'll highlight. First, cost and inefficiency. So staffing shortages have really driven up costs across the sector. Also inefficiencies. So relying on temporary workers or outsourcing often leads to inconsistent results. We're really seeing an uptick in the amount of outsourced work. So vendors, contractors, third parties, where historically a lot of this work has been done in-house. So we're leaning on folks, and we're seeing the industry leaning on folks outside of the organization. So disruptions in production and supply chain. So inconsistent staffing has really disrupted production schedules, causing ripple effects in supply chains and supplier relationships. Also regulatory risks. So there are lapses in expertise, so especially areas like safety and quality standards, which can really result in compliance failures and reputational damage. And then finally, that 4th point there, employee turnover. So we look at the human cost of turnover typically leads to employee burnout, loss of institutional knowledge, and the cost of rehiring and training. So with an aging skilled workforce, a lot of tribal knowledge often leaves the company when these folks retire. So that definitely is a challenge that I see often. When we look at AI as part of the solution, really the role of AI is, well, what we're hearing is 78% of leaders really believe AI will be pivotal in addressing the skilled labor shortage. 31% of industry leaders are adopting AI primarily to address skilled labor gaps. And we feel that while AI can assist in efficiency and consistency, it really can't replace human capabilities like creativity, adaptability, and leadership. So it's really looking for a balanced approach that combines both technology and workforce development. A couple key challenges that were identified in research. First, lack of diversity. So lack of diverse perspectives as far as driving innovation and resilience in particular skill sets. Also training and development. So outdated training practices fail to keep pace with industry demands. And then lack of knowledge. So again, just that knowledge drain that I mentioned as far as turnover and how folks are leaving the companies as they age and retire, and it really leaves organizations vulnerable. So risks of inaction, stagnation, reduced competitiveness, and difficulty attracting talent. So to tackle these challenges, food and beverage organizations can take some proactive measures. So the first being at the bottom left there, improving employer branding. So strong branding will attract top talent and retain employees. Also showcasing career growth opportunities, a really positive workplace culture, and alignment with sustainability values. Investing in technology. So there really is a dual role of technology in automating tasks as well as enhancing employee efficiency. And food and beverage companies are also adopting smart systems to upskill their workers. So that could be robotics, automation in food manufacturing, and also IoT. And then finally, that third item there is building from within as far as training and development. So really enhancing robust training and development programs, and then mentorship initiatives, cross-training to really bridge knowledge gaps. So we know the skills shortage is a significant challenge, but it's also an opportunity to innovate and evolve. So as AI and advanced technologies are valuable tools, the success really hinges on investing in people and processes. And we're really encouraging businesses to adopt a holistic approach, improve branding, embrace innovation, and of course, prioritize workforce development.
Thank you so much, Candice. Really interesting insights there. Thank you again. Interestingly, you know, when we're looking at food and beverage, when we're also looking at automotive and the other industries we surveyed, we did find those themes linked across the board. You know, there is a big realization amongst organizations that technology alone is not going to cut it, that there needs to be more done to address the skill shortage. Like we've mentioned, recruitment of diverse skill sets, AI integration, that continuous reskilling and development, training. These are all necessary to really pull together the heart of the organisation in order to cope with this, in order to mitigate really the challenges that they're facing today. And we can see really that building this future workforce is one that blends the technical, the problem solving, and most importantly, having those adaptive skills. And if they are using AI, then these skills are crucial to realizing the full potential of it. You know, just focusing in on the priorities that across respondents, these were the top priorities that came out. Improving employer brand, investing in technology, you know, top ones being AI, no surprise there, machine learning and cloud computing. But really hearing back in again on workforce development and training. To get the most value out of any of these things, we need to equip the workforce with the right tools to be able to use them, whether this is by improving their data literacy and teaching them how to use and understand data at its most complex levels, comprehensive training, but also that lifelong learning element. When we're talking about employer brand, and Candice put it really well, it's sort of, you know, that future for growth. You know, we want our employees to stay within the organisation. But obviously, we do know that there is an ageing and retiring workforce. So where does that put manufacturers today? Well, it means that we need to sort of diverse what we're doing. And that means attracting and looking for ways that we can attract the next generation of workers, whether that's millennials, Gen Z, or Gen Alpha. They predominantly spend most of their time on their phones. They're ahead of the game in terms of technology, and they're looking for roles that are digitally savvy. They like the idea of smart factories, and really to get the workforce ready, not in terms of existing and also future workforces. Innovation needs to be front and center, particularly with Industry 5.0 becoming such a big piece to future. to the future of manufacturing. And this is really the reality that manufacturers face today. Next slide, please, Robin.
Thanks, Liv. So a lot of information today, a lot of kind of topics covered. I just wanted to kind of hero back on a couple. I think one of the big ones is just the shift to technology-enabled roles. AI technology of any kind of sort is not going away. So it's important that we improve that digital skill base across employees. And that doesn't mean just technology specialists, it means bringing the whole workforce along that journey with you. The other thing that we're seeing is kind of AI-powered training or co-pilots. So ways to build and bridge the knowledge gap, essentially. So some people are using generative AI as a way to kind of walk new employees through work orders in a step-by-step process that's available on their smartphone or on a tablet. So looking at ways in terms of how we can bridge that knowledge gap. I think one of the key things is if you're looking to kind of adopt technology in your organization is looking at the specific use case that works for you. I think Liv touched on it earlier. You're only as strong as the data foundation that you've built. So it's not kind of a magic wand of they've done it, let's blueprint it to us. You really have to get solid on the kind of outcomes that are important to your organization and then work backwards from a piloted project on how you'll get there. And then I think the biggest thing that we kind of want to reiterate is to prioritize the human-machine relationship. It's all about kind of bringing your employees along the change curve with you, having effective change management practices, reskilling, upskilling, ensure that, you know, people are growing and developing themselves as well as kind of employing new entrants to the market, which might be in, you know, the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like Liv was touching on earlier. And we just wanted to kind of end on a nice statistic in that it's not going away. 76% of manufacturers believe empowering their workforce to use advanced technologies is crucial. So if not now, when? I think hopefully we've kind of given you some information today that you can go and take to your organizations, or that just might help you think and unlock ways that you might be able to utilize AI within your own operations. And I think we're going to go over to Q&A, so we've left nice 10 minutes to Q&A now.
Good timing.
And believe it or not, we have no questions, just many comments. Excellent, great information. Appreciate you taking the time to give this information to us, but I don't have any questions.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave. Yeah, we'll leave it a minute or so. If you do have any questions, please pop them in the question box now. And if not, we can kind of be found on LinkedIn. So can Gavin and Candice, who are our automotive and food and beverage experts. So if you do have any questions that come to you offline, please reach out to us and we'll be able to answer them for you or point you in the right direction. And just as Robin said earlier, download that handout now. It isn't available after the webinar. So if you want to keep the slides and have a look at the statistics, then now's the best time. However, our white paper on the skills shortage, looking at all the industries and the kind of segmented data, is live and on our website for you to be able to access and download.
And with that, I'll
questions.
Say thank you to both of you. Oh, nope, just lots of thank yous, more thank yous coming in.
Cool.
I want to say thank you to both of you for the information and for your time. To our audience today, I want to thank you for joining us again for another Best Practices webinar. We are committed to offering these at least once a month, and in many months we offer them 2 to 3 times a month. So be sure to check back on the website.